Welcome to Carrying Connected Conversations. I'm Sydney, a spiritual mentor who guides and supports you to live in alignment by finding and owning your power.
I'm Angie, a fitness and life coach, teaching you to love yourself unconditionally by staying accountable to your goals in fitness, food, life, and love. Syd and I are real-life BFFs and biz partners. Our deepest desire is to see you succeed in life by being willing and vulnerable to step out of your comfort zone.
We're constantly learning from each other while also providing support through every breakdown and every breakthrough. Not every conversation is easy. It's the difficult ones that lead you to create deeper connections in your life.
We want to inspire and empower you to love your life. So get ready for conversations filled with laughter, tears, and everything in between. Let's get connecting.
Hello, and welcome back to another podcast of Carrying Connected Conversations, specifically to episode 108. Today, we are recording the 108th episode, which is so funny because earlier today, I shared on my personal Facebook page 2 years ago when Syd and I first created the podcast. We said, hey guys, you can binge watch. We have 3 episodes up and running. And I'm just laughing because we're at like 108. So now you can definitely go back and binge watch or binge listen to those that are listening to us on your favorite podcast player. So I'm Angie. I'm one of your podcast hosts. I have Sydney over there that you can see. Today, I will be introducing her very shortly, but I want to do a little prevamp of what we're going to be chatting about today. It's more of a check-in, and I want to see where the check-in goes to bring up the next topic for discussion, because I have a couple things I'd like to discuss today, but I, of course, want to make sure it's in alignment with the conversation. So without further ado, let's check in with our other podcast co-host. Syd, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hello. I'm doing good. I am feeling good. I am sitting outside. I mean, if you guys know me by now, I love being outside. So the fact that I get to be outside and work is just the epitome of my dream life. So I'm in a great fucking mood right now. And I'm excited to see what you have to share, because kind of similar, like I've got a couple of different things that I could share. But ultimately, let's just see where this conversation takes us, as always, so we can connect to each other. And how do you want to start this off?
Honestly, I'm going to go right into it with one of the things that's currently going on in my life, because we haven't chatted about this on the podcast. Yes, in our friend chats, but not even so much so in our friend chats, but my love life, my single love life. This is such an interesting place for me to be in, because there is somebody newer in my life. And it's very interesting as I hop into this relationship or I should say situationship, because it's not even a relationship. And I've already made that disclaimer at the start. Because I'm in this place where I've now been single as I'm looking at the calendar. Yeah, it's been a year and like 2 months, and it's feeling good. I'm feeling good. However, there's been lots of moments throughout the year where I would crash. And we've definitely chatted about this in the podcast, where I just feel out of my sorts. I kind of lose my sense of purpose. I lose my sense of stability, whether that's through structure of routine, habits, like all the things. So coming into this, it's very scary for me, because I want to come into it with a place of pure intention. I don't want to be coming into it just to hop into another relationship or another situationship, because that's not what I'm trying to create in my life. I want to create something with meaningful purpose. So a big question that I've been asking myself lately, and sometimes I second guess myself, and that just makes me human, is what do I want? What do I want in the relationship? What do I want from myself as I go into the relationship? And what do I want this relationship to look like for me? And it's not to say that I'm needing to sit here and dictate what the next like 5, 10, the rest of my life looks like. But I need to be at least somewhat realistic based off of my past circumstances. And of course, I've chatted about this in the podcast before, is I've been relationship hopping since I was 15 years old. I'm coming up to my 30th birthday. That's half my life. Half of my life I've been in a relationship. So this is the first year and 2 months that I've been not in one, to figure out, who am I? What does Angie like? What does she want? And all these things. Hence why obviously I'm teeter-tottering back and forth with the idea of what do I want. So before I go into any further, Syd, I'm going to let you chime in because that's the biggest update.
Well, I think it's just really interesting that we have very different experiences when it comes to love life and being in relationships. You've been in a relationship for half of your existence on this earth, and I've never been in a relationship. So very, very different experiences. And you're saying that you've gotten to this place where you're finally stepping back and you're saying, what do I want? What does that look like? Who am I? And what am I calling in? Not even just in a relationship, but just what am I calling into my own existence, in how I want to experience life, and what do I want in this aspect, and how does a relationship kind of connect in that concept? And it's something that I've thought a lot about in my life as well. And I have a lot of friends who have always jumped from relationship to relationship like you. I have a lot of friends who've been single and have dated around. And so I've gained a lot of information and wisdom from hearing about other people's experiences. But I think maybe the difference between your situation and my situation, and just how we're different people, is I've had 31 years of my life to get really clear on who am I. And I mean, for a good portion of my 20s, I found myself going in different directions and falling away from that. But I've always been on my own. I've always been single. So it's always been a priority for me to determine who am I in this space as an individual. Whereas for you, it's always been, who am I in this space as a relationship? And we both have these people pleasing tendencies. So for me, it shows up as, how can I be there for my friends, my family, my coworkers, and make sure that they're happy? Because that's going to determine my worthiness as an individual. And for you, it's shown up as, how can I be there for my partner and make sure that they're happy, so it can determine my worthiness in this relationship?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But also, just to kind of veer from what you said, I should say, is one thing that I used to do a lot, which I'm not doing this anymore. And I've been so clear with myself with this, is putting my emotions based off of my partner's emotions. Like, if my partner is happy, I will then feel happy. And I know that seems so elementary, like it makes sense. Yeah, like obviously don't put your emotions on somebody. But when you're in love, you get a little stupid because love is literally a temporary state of insanity. You get all goo goo gaga eyes, you have those butterflies in your stomach. You just kind of lose your sense of logic. And because I've been in multiple positions where I've been in that same regard, I need to make sure that my emotions are in check. So I need to not react or do things from an emotional state. And what that means is, if I'm in the moment and I'm all goo goo gaga eyes and I'm wanting to stay the night, or if I'm wanting to meet up later throughout the week or the day, I need to separate myself literally from the individual and just check in with myself and say, okay, Ange, like, what do you want? Is this right? Is this what you're wanting because this is what's for you? Or are you wanting this because it's for right now good for you? And that has been very hard for me to separate it, because I'm a very emotional person. So getting myself in the emotion, because even like outside of a relationship, whenever I have emotions come towards or come to light, I have such a hard time differentiating a decision, like making that decision from a very clear standpoint.
I think that's the definition of people pleasing.
Oh, 100%
right?
it was.
That when somebody else is happy,
Yeah.
then it means that you're happy. I think it's also really great that you're having this recognition of your emotions and how it affects you in a relationship, and giving yourself the time and space to step away and say, hey, like, I'm being really affected. My emotions are being really affected right now. So I need to make a decision when I'm not in the emotion. I need to detach myself. And knowing your human design and the fact that you are an emotional authority, that literally means that you're not supposed to make decisions when you're in an emotion. It means that your emotions can sway your decision-making process, so you make a decision that is out of alignment. So if you look back at all your previous relationships and the choices that you made based on being happy because they're happy, you probably made a lot of decisions that were out of alignment. And now you're starting to learn, not just prioritizing the other person and making sure that the relationship is good. but making sure that you're good first and foremost. And that really comes back to, as you said, detaching your emotions, and before making a decision, giving yourself the time and space to figure out, how do I want to move forward?
100%. And for me to know what I want, to make sure none of that happens, is there's so many things that I want, but I think the number one thing is I want an emotional connection, because that is something I've lacked in almost every single one of my relationships. And especially looking back at all of those, that emotional connection, it wasn't present. And no wonder I felt like something was missing, whether it was someone was too overbearing, someone was too condescending, or whether it was somebody was just too much of a best friend. There was never that emotional connection where I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt understood for who I am, which, yes, of course, we talk about validation, right? External validation is nice. It's not needed, but it's nice. It's nice to know that I feel heard in terms of, what do I want? If I'm at least saying what I want, and I'm opening up the conversation with stating my emotions and saying, hey, this is actually what I'm looking for in a relationship. That's hard for somebody to do, to not only themselves, but then to say that to somebody else. That's been very different for me. So creating that emotional connection by really being open with my emotions and not feeling judged for saying how I feel, or not feeling, I guess, resented if I have different dreams and desires as the other individual. All in all, like I feel so, I feel so seen and so heard, and I feel like emotionally supported. And that is something I've been craving literally my entire life. And not even talking about, debunking like childhood stuff, but like emotional connection has been, as I've realized this past year and a bit, has been the number one thing I'm desiring to obtain. So yeah, me becoming really clear with that has been an eye opener.
Yeah, I think it's really good for all of us to be clear on what it is that we want in any aspect of our lives. So I think that that's really good that you've kind of created that space for yourself, and in recognizing what it is that you want, and starting to move yourself through the process of believing that you're worthy of receiving it. It's interesting that you say, I want an emotional connection, because as I was walking through the park to kind of set up for our call today, I was thinking about, my own situation and some things that I'm moving through right now, and some recognitions that I'm having. And I think this one thought that I had, it's funny, I was like, I don't know if you ever do this, but sometimes I'll have a conversation in my mind, like to prepare for a conversation that I think I might be having. So yes. I had the thoughts run through my mind as if I was already recording the podcast, like what I wanted to say. And so of course it ties in perfectly with what you're saying. I want an emotional connection. So I believe wholeheartedly that our external environment is a reflection of our internal condition. So if there's a problem going on in our external environment, rather than playing that victim card of, that thing outside of me needs to change, we have to be willing to take a step back and actually look within us and say, well, what can I change within me? Not necessarily like, how can I change my values so that external thing fits. What I'm talking about is very energetic. So if in your mind, for example, you, Ange, and then I'll give my own example. In your previous relationships, you're so focused on your partner's happiness, and you're saying that once they're happy, then I get to be happy. So what you're saying is, if they're not happy, then you're not happy. So your external environment was a reflection of your internal condition. So we bring this to the idea of you wanting an emotional connection. Immediately when I think of that, because we know your environment is a reflection of your internal condition. So your internal condition is a reflection of your environment. If you have no control over your environment, but you have control over your internal condition, how can you create that to have a positive energy and uplifting energy so you can attract the external environment that reflects your internal condition?
Tired of trying multiple fad diets and various workout programs, yet still feel like there is nothing working? Lacking the consistency and confidence in your own knowledge of what to do in and out of the gym is why those last 10 pounds feel impossible to lose. You need the accountability to remind yourself that this is a lifestyle you're creating, not an end result. Why? because your happy, healthy life is the result. I'm here to show you how to feel good about your body every single day, and the Fit and Free membership does just that. It's for the woman who needs accountability and a structured program or routine. For only $40 a month, you'll get 8 live recorded workouts with a personal trainer, 1 mindset coaching call, and over 50 plus different workouts to do on your own every single month. Get started by joining the Fit and Free membership today.
So what I'm saying is, if you want an emotional connection, have you been emotionally connecting to yourself? Have you been providing that space for yourself? Have you been honoring your emotions and supporting yourself in that and creating a space where you feel worthy in what you're feeling? So then you can attract someone who also sees your worthiness in your emotions.
Straight up answer, absolutely.
Yeah.
Abso-freaking-lutely. When I started my personal growth journey, it would have been May 2019, when I started my business, that's when I started to really come to realization of what I was doing with my happiness. I thought my happiness was always directly reflected off of the relationship and how that person, saw me, perceived me. If they were happy, then I would then be happy. And I had to debunk that whole concept in another relationship. So now coming out of that and going on my life on my own, the only thing that I could do is make sure that I'm in check with my emotions. How am I doing on a day-to-day basis? And I've been so intentional with that this past year. So it's almost like no wonder I'm attracting that, because I've been being that. I've literally been trying to get so much clarity with my emotions to remove myself from my situation from an emotional standpoint to make the most clearest, level-headed decisions. And I feel so confident in doing that. So I totally agree with you in how your internal environment reflects your external environment and how that level of attraction is then seen, because it's happening. So I'm going to change it completely and say, how is that for you then? How are you seeing this emotional connection or trying to obtain this emotional connection?
Well, I'm going to go in a different direction, because for me, it's not emotional connection. That's not what I desire.
Oh, I thought
And
you said you were
so-
talking about on your walk. You were like, emotional connection. I've been craving that.
No,
Sorry.
on my walk, that's okay. No, on my walk, I had said your external environment reflects your internal condition.
And you used my example. Got you.
And so I was using your
Got you.
example to kind of tie that in, because it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
So for me, how does my external environment reflect my internal condition, and what am I learning from that? Well, if you guys don't know by now, I live with my cousins, and they bought the home and they're actually renovating it. And I've had so far this year, well, if you've been watching on YouTube, you've seen my background change a lot. So far this year, I've had the opportunity to go and house sit. So I was condo sitting for my parents, and then I was house sitting for some family friends. And then I was house sitting last weekend for a couple friends who I house sit for pretty regularly. And so when I got back from the house sitting experience earlier this week, I got really upset because my cousins have been working from home a lot, and I had to record a YouTube video for my own channel. And I was in the middle of recording it, and they walked in the door, and I was in the living room. So immediately I was like, turn it off. And I recognized that I was frustrated, and I was like, I'm frustrated because I feel like there's no consistency in my environment for me to do the work that I want to do. So I'm really proud of myself looking back on it, because I honored how I felt. I allowed myself to release those emotions. I shifted into a totally different task to get something else done in a way that felt good. And then I kind of checked in with myself and said, I have to record this YouTube video today, and I want to record it today. How am I going to do it in an environment that feels good? And immediately I was like, I'll go to the park. Because I feel so relaxed and connected. So with that whole experience, it got me to thinking, how come so far this year, I've had so many amazing experiences where I feel like I'm living my dream life in my environment? So when I was condo sitting and house sitting, every single time I was in my own space, and not like physically my space. I was in somebody else's space, but I was on my own. So I could create it how I wanted it to be. And I could create the energy of that space how I wanted to be. And I could go for a walk when I wanted to, knowing that when I got home, I could get to work because nobody was coming or going. Like, I need to flow with my energy in order to be productive. I don't have consistent energy. So I can't wake up and work 9 to 5 and just get it all done. I have to recognize, how do I feel? What do I need right now? Oh, I need to do a yoga practice. Okay, now I feel ready to do work. Awesome. Some mornings I'm like, no, I'm ready to jump right into work. And so because of that, it's really hard for me to feel comfortable in my environment at home because my cousins obviously bought the house to renovate it. So like, they own the house. I can't tell them what to do. And their work schedule also fluctuates. So all of a sudden they finish a project that they're working on and they have time. So they'll come home and they'll work on the house, or their client work kind of shifts around. So all of a sudden they have an extra day where they can work on the house. So they also don't plan it. So if I don't plan my work, I can't expect them to plan their work. So there you go, internal condition reflecting my external environment. But really what got me down was I said to myself, like, I feel like I'm living my dream life in one way. And then all of a sudden I'm in an environment that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel supportive, and that isn't honoring my needs. Like, what's going on? Like, I feel so close to my dream life, yet it's not there. And I feel stuck in this space. And so I did some meditating on it to kind of take that and look inwards and say, how is my external environment a reflection of my internal condition? And I realized the house that I live in is under renovations, and they're like completely changing a lot of things, the structure, let's say. How is my life under renovations right now? And right now I've grown so much in the last 6 months, let alone the last 4 years, that I truly feel like I'm in a place where I've now built a strong foundation, and I'm working on building on top of that foundation. So my life is under renovations, and like the way that I view myself, the way that I show up, the energy that I carry, which is a direct reflection to the renovations that I'm currently living in. So now, rather than seeing the renovations that I live in as a frustration and an annoyance, I'm reminding myself, I also am under renovations. So how can I take this and not get frustrated and annoyed, and instead learn from it, and instead shift my energy into something that feels more positive, because that's what's going to call in my dream home.
I love that. That's such an important recognition for yourself. And it makes so much sense because you're always in this stage of work. Okay. Like, you are a work of art, but you have to add to that work. Like, you can't just have it created one day and then that's it, that's all. So it makes sense for you to feel that foundation, because as you said, like those past 6 months, and I've even recognized it too, like your growth has been astronomical because you've been legitimately putting in the work day in, day out. And no wonder you have that ultimate sense of fulfillment.
You're on your spiritual journey, desiring to create a deeper connection with your inner spirit and your soul path. But you feel lost in how to create more joy and calmness through life's challenges. In the meditation membership, you will feel seen for who you are and understood in a way that feels empowering and uplifting, alongside a community of like-minded beings. For only $33 per month, you will get 2 live calls filled with spiritual lessons, open-minded conversation, and powerful guided meditations. Join the meditation membership for more connection and support as you grow into the best version of you.
Because you're doing the work. And it makes sense too in the renovations, right? Like, you see when it's done, you're like, oh, that looks good. Like, that beam is up. Oh, that drywall looks great. Like, it's all these little mini senses of accomplishments, because the more often you do it, the more work you put into it, the more output you're going to get from it. So I totally relate to that, because it just, well, relate to that for you, I should say, because it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's just a strong reminder, like you said, like, we're always a work in progress. So like, don't rush to believe that you've got it all done. And so you should have everything, right? So what I'm using this time right now is like, I believe I've learned a lot of lessons in the last 4 years. And so right now is a time for me to integrate those lessons and embody those lessons. So when something goes off, like, you know, maybe people in my environment had an argument this morning and I could hear it. Being a non-emotional in human design, I immediately pick up the emotions, and the work that I do is about supporting and guiding people through their emotions. So I just want to support and guide someone through their emotions, but it's not the place to do that. So then I feel this sense of knowing that something needs to be worked on, something needs to be healed, but it's not my job to do it. So I have to disconnect, and I have to not take on that energy, and I have to guide myself back to a space where I remember what my purpose is. And even though I believe my purpose is partially helping people in one way or another, it looks different in every situation, and it looks different for every single person, right? So my one cousin has a daughter. So maybe the way that I help her is I babysit sometimes, right? My cousins that I live with, you know, maybe the way that I help them is cleaning the bathroom and paying my rent on time, right? Like, it's just bringing more joy into their lives. And then my clients, the way that I help them is I guide and support them through the deep inner work. So everything that's happening in my external environment right now is just a reminder for me to check in with my internal condition and ask myself, like, am I embodying the lessons that I've learned? Am I carrying uplifting energy, or am I allowing the low vibrational energy to affect the way that I'm moving through my day?
100%. And that brings you back to your original lesson learned of people pleasing, right? Like, you have to create that emotional disconnect, because if not, you're going to be constantly in a space of needing to fix other people's problems and then feeling frustrated that you're not able to fix it because A, they don't want it, and B, it's not your place to share. So it's super important, that you're recognizing that. And then I love this. I love this for you so much. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So I think it's time to kind of change gears here, do a little card reading, and see what comes up for us moving forward into this week. So maybe you guys are also experiencing some love questions or some love lust, I should say, in your life. Or maybe you're experiencing something in regards to your direct environment, like physically, what's going on in your household? Is there something that you're finding is outside of you that's reflecting you inside? And how does that correlate? What can you do to change? What can you do to create some deeper recognition for that in order to benefit you now and, of course, future you?
It's so great. So the question really is, what do we need to do? What do we need to do to change, right? That's what you said. No matter what is going on in your situation right now, what are we, not just like, what is the guidance that we are being given on our situation? It's what are we being asked to focus on in regards to changing our situation if we're not happy with the way that it is. And so when you said that, and 2 cards fell out as I was shuffling them. And the first card that we are receiving is White Witch, be the light. Ooh. Such a great reminder, letting you know that, like, you have the power of being the light, and you also have the shadow as part of you, right? So it's your job to alchemize that energy, to transmute the energy. We're not saying ignore the shadow, right? We're saying recognize where that pain is, where that frustration is, where that annoyance is, where maybe the challenges occurred in the past, and remind yourself, how can I be the light in this situation? How can I guide myself forward with some uplifting energy? How can I nurture myself? What do I need right now? And how can I make sure that I'm providing that for myself? This card really says, don't get sucked into the dramas. Don't get sucked into the problems that are around you, because that's the shadow and it will pull you down into the quicksand. You can see that it's there. You can choose to learn from it, right? We're not using toxic positivity. We're not ignoring the problem, but we're choosing to be the light, because that's what reminds us to carry hope. That's what reminds us to move forward one step at a time. And this lines up perfectly with the second card that came forward, because it is Hunter, track down your fears and desires. Yes. And this card literally says, well, what are your shadows? what are your fears? What are your worries, your doubts, and your wounds? And make sure you're not avoiding them, because right now, those fears, those worries, and those doubts, they're hunting you down. And they're coming forward when you least expect them. So when they do come forward, they catch you off guard and you spiral down into the quicksand. So if you want to be the light, which you have the ability to be the light, you got to take some time on your own and you got to look at your fears, because they're directly related to your desires. So when you better understand your fears, what triggers them, what causes them to come forward, it becomes a lot easier for you to learn how to support yourself in that space. So if you're stuck in a problem, if you're having a challenge, whether it's your love life, your external environment, you get to be the light. But don't forget to track down your fears and your desires in order to actually shift the energy and start moving forward.
I love this. And it's so funny because I saw it a little bit differently when you pulled it up. When you pulled up Be the Light, you said don't ignore your shadows and your darkness. But if anything, I think that Be the Light card is to say, hey, look at it with such intent to realize what it is, to then diagnose what those fears, what those worries, what those doubts are. Because if you're not actually spreading an actual light on it, how the heck are you going to know? And then that's when those fears, doubts, all those wonderful, awful things are going to start creeping up, as you said.
Yes, exactly. So such a beautiful reminder for all of us. Really take some time to, connect to what resonates with you. Like, how do you interpret the meanings of those cards? Because as Ange said, she interpreted it a little bit differently, and that's a-okay. The point of trusting your intuition and being able to guide yourself on your soul path is being able to interpret the messages that you receive in life and being able to decipher what you need to know on your own path. So definitely grab a journal, reflect on that, and reflect on everything that we shared today, and maybe how those energies show up in your own life and how you can support yourself moving forward. We want to thank you guys so much for being here for the 108th episode. I know we say it every single week, but it's mind-boggling to us that we are still here and we keep going. This is the consistency that we create, truly because we love showing up for each other and having these conversations. So we hope that it inspires you to create a deeper connection with yourself and to open yourself up to maybe some more challenging conversations with the people that you love in your life. We are sending you guys so much love, light, strength, and courage this week to show up for yourself. And we will talk to you guys next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.